So this is a fun one. I originally had a video for this already planned. I had recorded it like a week or two ago, but I hadn't had the chance to finish editing and uploading it. And then I find out that on Friday, Persona X Phantom, or whatever they've gone with the full title, is actually out in open beta. I'm not 100% sure on how it currently works, but the game is actually out and physically playable for people in China. So there went my original plan on discussing some of like the original sort of thoughts and theories of what the game was going to be, because we hadn't seen that much. Now it's actually out, we can, theorize a bit better. Now, unfortunately, I am not someone that can speak or read Mandarin or Chinese in any shape or form. So I know very little about much of what's online. Thankfully, I know a guy who does. And over the last couple of days, as far as I know, he's actually been playing the Persona X mobile game. And from what he told me, it's actually quite good. So it plays very, very similar to Persona 5. I've seen some recordings that he's provided for me. That's what all of the footage will be in the background for the most part. Thank you very much for providing them. You're a legend. But from looking at the game, it is literally just Persona 5 with a gacha model. And I mean, that's, to be honest, it's kind of what is to be expected. So it's the standard gameplay. You have the main character, you have up to 4 characters in your party along with a navigator. I think supposedly there's meant to be about 3 different navigators in the game, but I'm not entirely sure. I think one of them is meant to be in the gacha and then 1 or 2 of them is in the main story. But the way the game works for the most part is it's a standard Persona game. The main story is, a massive highlight. At least for the time being, it's going to be a pretty big highlight in the main game. I don't know how far ahead they're planning with this main story. I don't even know if it's already finished or what. I don't know if it's something like Arknights or any of Hoyoverse's titles where they have an overarching plan for their story and they just progressively develop it as time goes on. But people can finally get hands-on access to the game and it looks great. From what he told me, it feels very similar to playing Persona 5 just on console or PC. It feels great. It feels good to play. I did cheekily want to see if I could VPN my way into playing the game myself, but you do technically need a phone number to actually run the game. Unfortunately, that is their security way of getting around people from other countries, just cheekily getting into Chinese servers. And I'm sure there's a way to work around it, but sounds like a faff, to be honest. I'm sure there's going to be a guide made on it eventually. But I just kind of wanted to go through some of what seems to be appearing in the game and how things are going to work. So from the looks of things, from this screenshot here, which hopefully Editor James will be not terrible at providing, is essentially the banner system. So you've got main character, weapon, and that might be standard. I'm not entirely sure. That's my theory anyway. On the main banner, you've got the standard, 1 pull, 10 pull, that sort of thing. And in there, you've got the 5-star rate up character, who in this case is Joker from Persona 5. And then you've got the new, I'm not sure, penguin character, who's essentially Morgana, but not Morgana. He's now a penguin instead. And then 2 other characters who I imagine are 4 stars. And then obviously you've got the weapon banner, and then possibly the standard banner. So the gacha system, very similar to pretty much most gachas nowadays. And then this is the weapon banner itself, which takes a different type of gem or weapon banner token by the looks of things. So obviously each character is going to be needing their own weapon and whatnot to, get the job done. So, pretty standard. And then from banner pulls, you'll be getting a multitude of different things. You'll be getting personas, characters, and also weapons. So weapons are pretty standard. They're just, standard equipment. Personas, from what I've been told, can only be equipped on your main character. And on your main character, there are 3 different slots for 3 different personas. I don't know if that gets more in depth as time goes on. My friend is only so far into the game and it's only been out officially since Friday. So there's really only so much information we can garner. But the way that it works is random personas your main character can equip, and then if you pull a character, they have their own assigned persona from the game. So for instance, I think I've got gameplay footage running in the background, but he currently has Joker, who is Arsene, and then he also has On, who has Cameron, I believe. So each party member has their own persona assigned to them, pretty much exactly like Pokemon Masters EX, which is very similar. So this is the persona screen. It says 30 out of 500, which I don't know if that means there are 500 different personas. That might actually mean total. So maybe it's like a max amount on your account you're allowed to have. So say you've got 500 copies of, random personas, you can't have any more than 500. I suspect that's what it is, because 500 personas in general, right at the very start of the game, seems a little bit unlikely. There is a fusion system, from what I'm being told, which is to be pretty expected from the game, to be honest. Yeah, so here's where I was talking about earlier, where the main character has 3 different persona slots. So you have 1, 2, and then it looks like you get a third one at level, I'm guessing that's level 30 is what that looks like. And then everyone else just has the 1. There is also everyone's favorite item of all time. We have a battle pass. This is to be expected. What game doesn't have a battle pass? If it has a connection to the internet, it's going to have a battle pass. No idea whether the battle pass is any good. I guess we'll just have to see. Unfortunately, I don't know what most of these items are. I imagine some of them are general resources to upgrade stuff. This is the party menu. So obviously you've got main MC, Joker, Ryuji, On, and then what I suspect is the navigator slot, which unfortunately he doesn't currently have. Maybe he's not come across them in the main story, I'm not sure. But I imagine that's the navigator, and I would suspect the navigator has their own little buffs and side things they can do for the party. Here's a cheeky list of the items, your profile stats. I did double check just to make sure I'm not doxing this man. He did say it was fine not to censor anything, so let me know if that changes. I'm sure I can edit it in post again. This is considered a checklist for all your characters, if I'm not mistaken. So we've got a couple of characters we already recognize, like Joker, Ryuji, On, and then we have some of the new characters like the Penguin, and some of the other characters who I simply don't know the name of. And then there are a few characters that he's not currently unlocked. Here are some of the weapons as well, and then some of the personas. So it looks like there's about 133 personas currently in the game. I'm sure this will expand quite vastly. Be nice to see how many we end up getting. I'm sure there will be more like awakened versions as well, as the game gets a bit more towards the end game, shall we say. There is a food system, because what game doesn't have food systems now? And it's your pretty standard food system. You eat the food, it gives you a small buff for, I believe it's the next battle. He didn't specify, but I would suspect it's the next battle. But yeah, there's a food system for anyone that is interested enough. Obviously, we've got quests and missions, that kind of thing. It's pretty bog standard, this type of title at this point. Yeah, and then, combat and gameplay is pretty standard Persona 5. If you played Persona 5, you know what you're going to be getting with the gameplay. So I'll have it sprinkled in the background just to enjoy. But yeah, that's about the gist of it, really. So the game pretty much is just Persona 5 on mobile with a gacha system, which I think is what most people were expecting it to be. And honestly, that's okay. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I did enjoy their previous game. Well, not their previous game, but the previous Atlus game, which was DX2, the Demon Summoners game, which I quite enjoyed. It was a good bit of time. It was a good bit of fun. It was really interesting that the game had collaborations with stuff like Devil May Cry and Bayonetta. So if we somehow got that in Persona, don't mind if I do. But that brings me to my next point, of which is the game currently isn't out anywhere other than China, Korea, and I think Taiwan, if I'm not mistaken. That begs the question, will it ever come to the West? And let's be frank, it's Persona. It's going to come to the West. If a title like DX2, if I'm saying that correctly, comes to the West, where it is Shin Megami Tensei, which is a smaller franchise, even though Shin Megami Tensei is technically still Persona. Most people gush over Persona. Persona kind of made it out of the niche space, whereas SMT is still kind of there. But if you're a fan of one, you're usually a fan of both. People in the West love Persona. People just love Persona in general. It's heavily stylized. It's incredibly well animated. The augmented press turn system is great. The stories are always really good, and the music is absolutely phenomenal. So the game looks like a lot of fun, and the music looks outstanding as per usual, which is to be expected. It's Persona. It's most likely going to come to the West within probably a year or two, I would imagine. I would suspect a big portion of the success will be down to how it performs in China and the rest of its regions. But let's be honest, people love Persona. People are going to be begging for this game to come out in the West at some point in the next year. And I honestly can see that happening. There are plenty of games that have had a Chinese or Japanese release. Something like Another Eden comes to mind, where originally it was released in Japan. People really enjoyed it in Japan, and then people were like, can we have this in global, please? And then eventually it came out in global, and ever since then, Another Eden global has been catching up to Japan, and that's just been the case. So there are plenty of mobile games where they were really successful in China or Japan, and then a global version was released, and then all that time has spent global catching up to the Japanese or Chinese release, and then eventually they just coincide into one big beautiful mess of regularly spaced content. This was all I ever really wanted to talk about in the original video, but now I had actual footage to go by, and the fact that the game is actually released, it was kind of hard to use the original video because it was all kind of speculation based on some screenshots we'd seen online. But now people can actually get their hands on it, providing you have some way of doing so. It's nice to know I can provide some more accurate information. Very upsetting this game is not available for anyone in global, but we will just have to hunker down for now and see how things go. I'm sure it will come to everywhere else eventually. We just have to wait a little while. One bad thing about the game so far is that they are struggling with server capacity, which, let's be honest, isn't really a surprise. When you've got so many people looking forward to playing the game, you're gonna come across some server instability, and that is apparently what happened over the last couple of days. So the game is getting review bombed just a little bit, not a super amount, but like just enough to get below 4 stars, which from the sounds of things isn't due to play. It's just down to the fact that the servers are not running particularly great. But when you have that many people desperate to play your game, it's kind of to be expected. With that though, I think that's about all I have to say. Thank you for those that stuck around to the end. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and all that good stuff. Let me know down in the comments below what you think of Persona X. I'm personally really excited to try and play the game sometime. I love the Persona franchise, I always have, and I want nothing more to get my hands on the game and try it myself. Unfortunately, as of right now, that's not exactly possible, but maybe in a year or two, things might change. If a post comes out at some point where they say, hey, we're making an English version, I'll be all over it. Until then though, I've been James, the Mayor of Jamestown, and until next time, goodbye.